Hey travelers, so on to the second videos in this series. This is actually a remake of the series, I guess, or of the Taurus video in that case, because I wanted to make it a little bit more professional, add a little bit more information, remove some, just some Virgo moon things. So Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac, straight after Aries, right before Gemini. They're an Earth sign, they're fixed, they're ruled by Venus. I'll get into these details a bit later, but first sign was Aries, so it was more about creating a sense of self, the first little spark in the world, if you want. Putting something into life. Taurus is more about building values upon the self. Um, Not so much about putting things into life, although they're very creative. They make really good art, but they're more about harmonizing stuff and more about tending the garden rather than planting seeds like Aries would be. Um, and after Taurus, you would go into Gemini. So Gemini, is a lot about relating to others. So I feel it's kind of interesting that first, it's kind of like the steps our souls or like our spirits take to like evolve. First, we're creating the self. Second, we're creating the value. And third, we're relating to others. So like we should really know what's good for us before we get to relate to others. This is what I feel is kind of wrong also in society. Like we teach our children like what's right and wrong, but they're supposed to know for themselves. So this is kind of something that Taurus um, reminds us of, or it's finding our own truth. It's finding our own values in this world. It's having things for ourselves, valuing our own gifts, especially artistic gifts. Because, like I said, Taurus is an earth sign, so they're a lot about like what can be brought down into physicality, like something they could touch, they could see, they could hear, they could smell, something that they could appreciate through their senses, because this is how they're going to see the world. Depending on what you got in there. I'm kind of talking about Taurus Sun, but if you got, let's say, Mercury in Taurus, perhaps you're going to be touchy with your hands. You're going to like to appreciate things with your hands. Your thinking is also going to be practical, aka how could you use your mind into how could you use it to like build something in the world? How could you use it so that it is practical, so that it has a certain foundation, a certain foundation to the thinking? Any planet you got in there, you kind of make analogies like that. Um, so being ruled by Venus, they're this feminine principle. They're about, harmonizing stuff. It's like their aura kind of slows down things so that their senses could appreciate it, and they're just like this bull walking smoothly, appreciating the air, like licking the air or whatever, like smelling some candles perhaps if you're a Taurus, like eating good foods, touching cool textiles or textures, whatever it is. Um, and they harmonize that. So they have a sense of what matches with what, because they're always experiencing from this sense perspective, which makes them really sensual. They like to take things slowly. They like to really value like the comfort or like you know, the the physical beauty and like the how things are made for them to use. They like to have good things most of the time, like expensive, some people would say, but just something that they could really feel good in. Um, Being ruled by Venus means, well, it doesn't mean that, but they're also opposite to Scorpio, so they're kind of on the same axis. Where Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto, Taurus actually is ruled by Venus. So again, you've got this feminine principle for Taurus, masculine principle for Scorpio. Taurus attracts through like it's like they're magnetic in a way, almost like in a physical way. Um, it's almost like they're a magnet. They attract stuff to them. Pew, pew, pew. Scorpio goes and gets stuff. Taurus protects themselves, protect what they have. Taurus goes and dives deep into stuff and see what other people got. They see behind the filter, kind of they see people's foundations. And um, Taurus is also about foundations, but where Taurus does it in a physical and practical way, Scorpio does it in a more emotional way. So Scorpio might block themselves before opening themselves, and Taurus might be like, no, I got this, it's fine. Like, I have my possessions, I don't need to like try too many new things, you know. What else? Yeah, Venus being ruled there, it means that Mars is kind of in its detriment there. Mars being like more direct and focused and a go-getter and going with the passions. When it falls into Taurus, which likes to harmonize stuff and like make sure everything matches well, they're more about the calibrating force, you know, than the Martian energy, which wants to do this, do that, point A to point B, like yes, no, no, you know. So Mars being there might have some, you know, they might seem stubborn a little bit, or they might try to push like their harmony in some way that doesn't really, you know, so you have to look for that. And the moon is actually exalted in Taurus, so the moon really feels well there, and you can kind of see that, you know, it's also making this, the moon in an earth sign, so it brings a certain sense of practicality. But what I've noticed with people who have this is that even though the moon is in an earth sign, they're really able to express their emotions in a way that's comprehensible for the rest of the people. Now, I might, like, some of you might be like, no, I know this crazy ass, like, moon in Taurus, like, whatever. But the moon in Taurus is going to make them kind of need a certain security, a certain comfort. So the way they're going to play out their emotions or the personality or the way they're going to reflect upon things is going to show those Taurian qualities, and it's going to do it in a nice way, you know. So that's kind of what it is for the planets. Taurus rules, I think, as maybe I said it, the Taurus rules the throat and the ears. So, you know, they as much as like sometimes they don't like to express themselves, or like they kind of hide their teeth as they're speaking, they can be very vocal. They can make great singers, especially if you got like Jupiter in Taurus, or like, you know, so some good Taurus placements. They're going to be really good artists. They're going to be able to feel, I'm just speculating there, but they're going to be able to feel probably the music as it comes out of them, and they're going to calibrate, equalize it in a way, you know. They're going to have the musical ear also. They're going to understand the colors, they're going to understand how everything matches together, which makes them really beautiful. It also shows in their general aura, you know. They're being magnetic like they are, and being an earth sign, meaning they kind of slow down things and they appreciate the physicality, the density of things. I don't know where I was going with that, but it makes them, it makes their aura really like beautiful and kind of comforting in a way, you know, really charming. Really beautiful Taurians people. I'm probably repeating myself like that, but really beautiful. The second house kind of deals with the same thing as Taurus, you know, what we have, what we value, how we, you know, yeah, pretty much. Taurus, Taurus, Taurus. You know, they're gonna get well with other earth signs because there's this certain practicality and there's certain earthiness and physicality that they can see, that they can understand. They come kind of from the same realm. Excuse me. And they're going to get along well with water signs, especially Pisces and Cancer, because that's sextile. And then Pisces are going to adapt a little bit to the fixedness of Taurus, and they're going to be able to, you know, build something. Water makes Earth more malleable, and the Earth kind of brings a certain grounding for the water. And with Cancer also, you know, because the Cancer ruled by the moon is exalted in Taurus, so there's this certain emotional connection or this certain emotional understanding that could go between them, plus again, water and earth. Now, Scorpio are opposite, so as much as like they could kind of like be in this tug of war, like, no, this is it, no, this is it. They're kind of going for the same thing, but they're coming from different points, as any axis really. So it could kind of give them a point to look into. Like, oh, I'm Taurus, this is Scorpio. I understand Scorpio because I'm on the same axis, and like vice versa, you know. So Scorpios and Taurus, they could match well together, as much as it could seem bipolar together, you know, because they really are astrologically. Um, Now, if you're looking at like air signs, I mean, Gemini is just beside Taurus, so perhaps like someone who's got things in Taurus or someone who's got things in Gemini are gonna have things in the other sign, you know. So since they're really close, and Venus doesn't think it doesn't move farther than 56 degrees from the sun, and a sign is 30 degrees. So you know when your sun signs something, your Venus could never be farther than 2 signs from where you are, and your Mercury could never be farther than 1 sign, 28 degrees. So if there's a Gemini, it might go well with Taurus, or they might understand each other because the Gemini might have Taurus things, the Taurus might have Gemini things. Taurus with Libra is good also because they're both about beautifying things and like the Venus aspect of things. There's kind of like this biquintal going in between them, so they could kind of like not really understand each other, but they kind of feel like they do in a way. And Aquarius. Now this is the square, Aquarius to Taurus. Aquarius is about revolutionizing, rebelling, detaching themselves from the senses, from the ego, going into the mind. So that could kind of shock Taurus. Aquarius could kind of shock anybody, but there's going to be this tense pull, you know, this square in between them, where Taurus wants to be more, maybe not more conformist, but they want a certain foundation, a certain stability, right? And Aquarius is like, no, what about this? What about this? What about that? So perhaps the energy could be more interesting there. And finally, Taurus with Aries, same thing as Taurus with Gemini. They're kind of together, so that can match well. Taurus with Sag isn't so bad either, actually. Taurus might think that like Sag is a little bit crazy, that they see things like from a, you know, that they're too optimistic, not optimistic, but that they don't focus too much on the practicality and the details of things. And Sag might think that Taurus is too much, you know, set into their ways, and you know, but there could be like an interesting alchemy between those two. Taurus and Leo now, the final sign that I'm going to talk about. You know, they're both fixed signs, so it's like Taurus with Aquarius. Leo kind of makes this pull with Taurus. Taurus is kind of gonna try to ground down the Leo's fire, and the Leo might, I don't know, like burn in itself, trying to get Taurus's earth moving. So together they could kind of have this interesting aspect. So it's earth and fire, you know, it could be really passionate, really intense, but if things go awry, like if things don't evolve, like one is gonna burn himself up, the other is gonna feel irritated or something, you know. So that's to watch for. Yeah, that's pretty much what I had to say really about Taurus. I hope you enjoyed it. You know where the buttons are if you want to like and shit. Really helps me out. But anyways, just have a good one, guys.